So this week's Dynamite was the FYTER Fest show, and it kicked off with an IWGP US title match, which is pretty crazy to see a New Japan match on AEW, but the champ, Jon Moxley, took on Carl Anderson, and Moxley would retain after hitting Anderson with a paradigm shift. And to be honest, when it comes to this championship, I feel like it's starting to be a bit of a prop championship. I know with this championship and the company that it's associated with being located overseas that it makes it kind of difficult to defend the title during a pandemic. But when I see a championship reign that goes on for 500 plus days and there's only been like 4 defenses, I start to feel like the championship loses a bit of its legitimacy. I don't know, maybe I'm not really being fair, but either way, after the match, Lance Archer challenges Jon Moxley to a Texas death match next week on night 2 of FYTER Fest, which sounds pretty cool because it'll be a rematch from their Wrestle Kingdom match. And also, based on what I just said, I'm hoping, like the Wrestle Kingdom match, it'll also be for the IWGP US Heavyweight title, because I think that title just needs to be defended more, even if it only involves Gaijin wrestlers. Then we had an interview with Andrade El Idolo, where he basically said that he's looking for the Death Triangle, and I'm thinking he's looking to create a new faction with the Lucha Brothers, which will probably set up a conflict with Pac. And if that's the case, I'm super excited because that is an absolutely money rivalry. I would absolutely kill to see Andrade El Idolo versus Pac. It'll really show the potential of 2 NXT stars that were wasted and ruined on the main roster. And yes, I will be bringing this point up until the end of time. Thank you. And then we have the FTW World Championship match between the champion Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. And honestly, I can't believe it took us this long to get to the breakup of Team Taz, because I remember talking about this months ago, so I'm just glad we finally got to the climax. But anyways, Team Taz was watching from ringside and ended up screwing Cage. Starks took advantage and pinned Cage to become the new FTW World Champion. And I'm hoping now that Brian Cage will go on a good solo run because he just screams world champion. And then Cody Rhodes came down to call out Malachi Black. I can't fucking call him that. I just don't like that name. Not only because it's too similar to his WWE name, but because it just sounds kind of weird. Tommy End just sounds so much more badass. Anyways, Tommy End came out after Cody Rhodes called him out and they began brawling before AEW officials came out to separate them, so I'm excited for the eventual match between them. And then Alex Marvez interviewed Tully Blanchard, and then LAX came up to bully Tully. That sounds funny. Bully Tully, to continue their rivalry with FTR, or I guess the Inner Circle's rivalry with the Pinnacle. And this whole segment is kind of messed up when you think about it. Like, these two guys dressed as street thugs, their words, not mine, just bullied this old man. So who's supposed to be the heel here? Is it Tully? And then next, we had Tony Schiavone interviewing Adam Page. Adam about challenges for the AEW World Championship, but the Elite come out to remind Page of his leaving the group or being excommunicated from the group. I honestly don't remember and I don't care. But Page floors Matt Jackson, and before Kenny Omega can do anything, the Dark Order come out and fend off the Elite. And then the challenge is laid down by Kenny Omega. The Elite versus Page and the Dark Order in a 5-on-5 elimination tag team match, and if Page and the Dark Order win, Page gets a shot at Omega's AEW World Championship, and the Dark Order gets a shot at the Young Bucks' AEW World Tag Team Championships. But if Page and the Dark Order lose, they lose their title shots. And honestly, I feel like this is going to lead to a championship win for both Adam Page and the Dark Order, mostly because Page hasn't really been able to get back into the AEW World Championship picture since the match at All Out in 2019 to determine the inaugural AEW World Champion. So I feel like this is his time. Plus, story-wise, it does make sense for him to take it off of his old tag team partner, Omega. And I felt like with Brody Lee, the Dark Order was honestly on the verge of a huge push. And it was especially after the death of Brody Lee that I thought the Dark Order was absolutely on fire and was about to find major success. So we'll see what happens. And then Alex Marvez interviewed Chris Jericho, and Sean Spears re-gifted the chair shot he was given last week by Sammy Guevara to Chris Jericho. And then MJF came up and told Jericho that his first of 4 opponents to get a match with MJF would be next week in a match with Shawn Spears. And the stipulation would be that Shawn can use a chair, but Jericho cannot. And then Matt Hardy faced off against Christian Cage. And this continued the story from 2 weeks ago where the Hardy family came out after Jungle Boy's 50th win and attacked him before Christian and Jurassic Park came out to fend them off. Honestly, when it comes to Matt Hardy and Christian, I forgot that they were a part of the infamous Team Extreme versus Edge and Christian rivalry back in the 90s. I think it really shows you how long they've been in the game, and the fact that all the boys are still going is pretty ridiculous. But tonight, Christian Cage beat Matt Hardy with the kill switch, and then the Hardy family came out again, this time to attack Christian, but in a very similar manner, Jurassic Park came out to help Christian and fend the Hardy family off. And then Sammy Guevara faced off against Wheeler Yuta, and Sammy hit the GTH and got the win over Yuta. And then Yuka Sasaki faced off against Penelope Ford. Yuka made her return since I think like the start of the pandemic, because obviously travel restrictions probably prevented her from coming to the US. And then Yuka hit the Magical Girl Splash on Ford for the win. And then the main event for night 1 of FYTER Fest, Darby Allin faced off against Ethan Page in a coffin match. And in the end, Darby bounced off of Page while on his skateboard, and Page fell into the coffin, which Darby promptly shut and won the match. And then Darby, just for the hell of it I guess, did a coffin drop onto the casket which broke underneath him. So super fun match, and Darby is super over right now. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of when Jeff Hardy was at his prime back in 2008 to like 2009. Like, I can really see him on his way to becoming a world champion if he keeps this momentum going like Jeff Hardy did back in the day. He's already won the mid-card title, so at this point, there's nothing left to do but to build a really strong following and use that to propel him to the world title picture like Hardy did. So overall, good show, and we'll see what happens on night 2 of FYTER Fest.